Hello everyone, I hope we're all having a wonderful day. Okay, what we're going to do today is have a look at Stalin and industrialisation. So the lesson which I did on Teams yesterday went over all the stuff to do with Lenin and industrialisation, NEP. What we need to look at today is Stalin. And just like with the other topics we've done on this, you need to be thinking all the time, how is this similar, how is this different to how previous rulers, in this particular case, had industrialised and treated industrial workers. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a very short, it's literally one slide, it's very, very short, PowerPoint about Stalin's aims and motives. Okay, so there's a picture of Mr. Stalin, lovely chap. Okay, and Stalin was really desperate to industrialise, and he wanted to industrialise firstly, to try and defeat the West in terms of economic power. Again, think about the similarities there with the Tsars, isn't there? You know, the Tsars wanted to industrialise Russia in order to compete and be equal to the West. Well, Stalin had the same aim. And also he wanted to ensure the Soviet Union could defend itself from capitalist enemies, i.e. industrialisation was part of being militarily strong. Again, this has echoes back to the Tsars because obviously following the Crimean War, they realised that their economy was not up to scratch and they needed to industrialise to produce the weapons and equipment, etc., etc. So again, there's very strong similarities here with the Tsars in terms of motives. What Stalin did, he abandons Lenin's NEP and he favoured a very centrally controlled system, and what he wanted was 5-year plans, and in each of those 5 years he expected Russia to produce X amount of this and Y amount of that. So he set up very challenging kind of production targets, and Stalin being Stalin, of course, if you meet those targets then, well, let's say your life expectancy was a little short. So very much centrally controlled, all this, all controlled from Moscow. You know, they wanted, he was very keen for this amount and that amount, so a lot of control involved in this. And he favoured heavy industry, so coal and steel production. His aims were to try and beat the West in terms of how much coal Russia produced or how much steel they made. Notice there's not an interest here at all in things like consumer products or making life nicer for citizens. It was all heavy industry because that is what fueled the Industrial Revolution in the West. You know, think of Britain in the Victorian times, with those big cotton factories and stuff like that. So he was trying to, go down the same line. And again, you might say, was that different to the Tsars? Because they too focused, didn't they, largely on heavy industry. Okay, right, in terms of work I'd like to do, what I want you to do first of all, in your booklets, you will notice there's this first page, Stalin's 5-year plans. What were the aims and logic of Stalin's policies? That's what was on that PowerPoint slide. And then this linking with the past, which I tried to do, to try and make you think about the past. In what ways was his ideas similar or different to Witt or Rutan under the Tsars? Okay, so I kind of mentioned that in my little introduction. There's then a YouTube video which I want you to watch. I will email you the link with it on. It's about 20 minutes long, and it discusses an iron ore factory at a place called Magnitogorsk. It's called Magnitogorsk because it's very magnetic, because there's that much iron deposits in the area. And it's quite a nice video because it's for someone who was there at the time, and they explain what life was like building this great big giant industrial plant in Soviet Russia. So I'm going to watch that, so it's about 20 minutes long, and then you'll notice there's a couple of, there's this page here called Stalin's 5-year plans. What you need to do, if you look on Moodle, there's a book by Lynch, and I think the title is Stalin and Industrial Economy. I think it's called Lynch, Stalin and Industrial Economy. And using that book, you need to basically complete these details about the first few 5-year plans. If you want to do any extra reading on these 5-year plans, I'd also have a look, if I were you, at the book by Corrin and Fine called 5-Year Plans. Okay, have a look at them both, get a real good picture as to what the 5-year plan's about. how successful were they, what problems did they generate, and again be thinking, is this similar or is this different to what the Tsars had done? Okay, then the next page, it's a table, if I remember correctly, on success and failures. So what you need to think about was, in what ways, and again I think the Fine and Cohen book does quite a nice bit of this, but so too does Lynch. In what ways was Stalin's 5-year plans a success? So if you think about his aims, did the 5-year plans allow Russia to catch up with the West? Did the 5-year plans allow Russia to be militarily strong by the end? Did the 5-year plans meet the targets which Stalin wanted? Then think about the failures. Was the human cost too great, basically? Did it produce enough goods? Which type of goods were perhaps not being produced, which might have weakened kind of Stalin's position? So have a look at all the stuff, have a proper think about successes and failures of these 5-year plans, and then come to a conclusion whether you think overall, on balance, he was successful or he wasn't. Okay, and then the final bit is just to do a little bit of work about living and working conditions of the industrial workers. So obviously from the video, you should have some quite good idea about the living and working conditions of industrial workers. It says use page 219 of the Lynch book as well. I think he does talk about industrial workers and their conditions. And then have a think about, I've skimmed it backwards, then have a think about what that work we did on the the Tsars and industrial workers, and have a think about, were there some similarities in terms of working conditions and living conditions, and in what ways was Stalin's kind of industrialization perhaps worse for living and working conditions, or possibly better? So have a think about that. And then the same for workers' rights. So use the video, use page 218, and then have a think about, did workers' rights get better or worse under Stalin, or were they pretty poor for Stalin, Lenin, and the previous rulers? Just bear in mind, of course, that the Bolsheviks are supposed to be the workers' party, so you might expect living and working conditions to improve greatly. But I probably can guess they didn't. And then finally, because I hate for you to get too bored, you will notice then this final great big table where I'm just trying to link in Stalin to what went before. And I put on the left-hand side some kind of themes of Stalin's industrial policy. And what I want you to do is have a think about in what ways were each of these things similar to Lenin and the Tsars, and in what ways were they different? And you might want to highlight, this is really different to what Lenin did, but was similar to what the Tsars did. So have a real think about that when you put in those points down for that. Okay, and I think that will do you for now. I'll probably make another video, probably on Saturday or something like that, because I don't have a life. And that will be on Khrushchev and industrial policy. So if you get this done this week after you've done the Lenin lesson, which I'm going to produce this afternoon, perhaps do it Thursday, Friday, do this lesson, then we'll get Khrushchev done over the weekend, and then I see some of you on Tuesday, don't I? So if you get it done for Tuesday, those people, we can then have a discussion of it and then move on to the next bit. Okay, any problems or whatever, then feel free to send me an email and I will get back to you.